Good morning and welcome back to Darvanalee Designs Studio. For those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reed and today I'm going to show you how to do a satin stitch, a chain stitch and a back stitch. Now the reason that I'm doing this video is because I've had a request from the Stitch With Me. A lot of people couldn't actually see what I was doing as I was stitching up in midair essentially, so that made it a little bit hard. So I'm going to give you a close-up view of the different stitches that I did. Alright, so the first one that I'm going to start with is the easiest one of all, and that is the back stitch. So you can see here, this is what our back stitch will look like, and I'm also going to show you how to do it on a curve as well. So basically all you're going to do is on your whatever you're back stitching on, you're going to start at the beginning and then you are going to pull that through, and then you're going to come about 3/8 of an inch along and pop that down and create your first stitch. Then you're going to move along your line about 3/8 of an inch. You're going to come up and then you are going to go back down in the hole where where the stitch is behind you. So just like that. And then you're going to come up a little bit further along and you're just going to travel along that line like so. I've got a bit of a knot in there. And you can do these as a little bit longer as well, so you can see there that I've just done a longer one, but when you're doing it in one line you want them to be uniform. So either way, whether it's a little bit of a longer stitch or whether it's a bit of a shorter stitch, you just want them to be around the same length. Okay, so that is essentially a back stitch. You're going along the line and then coming back down into that stitch. Alright, so next we're going to move on to our curves. Now curves are a little bit different. You do have to make your stitch slightly smaller just to get a nice curve, and what I like to do is actually just inside the line is where I like to stitch, because that gives me a nicer circle. So you can see these ones here, the stitches are like, this is a smaller circle, so my stitches are smaller. This is a slightly bigger stitch, and you can see you're getting a nice circular shape. So to do that, all you've got to do is make sure that your stitches stay uniform. So for this one, I'm going to do them just a little bit shy of 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to work just inside that line. Okay, so for our little circles, I'm just going to come up just on the inside of that circle, and this is just what I do. I don't know if this is right or wrong, but this just gives me a better looking circle when I'm working with smaller ones. So about moving along just about 1/8 of an inch, again just on the edge of that line. And I just keep working around the circle, moving along about 1/8 of an inch. And the reason that I reduce my stitch length is because we are working with a smaller curve. And if you're working the down in the garden one along with us, you've got a lot of petals on small flowers and stuff like that that have back stitch, so this will come in handy for that. I'm just showing you on a circle today, and you want to just keep them nice and uniform. If you do them too big, you get like a jagged sort of circle, and as I said, the reason I like working on the inside of the circle is because when I draw them out, that seems to be the smoothest part. Okay, and we just keep going along like that, and you can see these ones here how they've got a really nice circular shape to them. And again, just come up and down. And then when I get around to my neck, like the first stitch, I just come up where I started, and then I go down into that hole. Okay, so that is our circular, like the small circle. All right, the next one we're going to move on to is the satin stitch. All right, so you can see here I've done 2 already, and they're nice and smooth. They're sitting nice and flat. They're not too risen, which is really good. And the way to achieve this without working from one side to the other, which is what I struggle with, and I got a really good tip from a lady at a shop where I used to work, and basically how she did it was she cut her circle in half. So I come up on the line, and I find you, depending where you come up from, so you can come up on the inside of the line if you wanted to, or you can come up on the outside of the line. Pick one and stick with that. Okay, so for me, it's easier for me to remember to come up on the line, especially if I've got a lot of little circles to do, like we do in the down in the garden, like all the center of the flowers are satin stitch. So at the top of my circle, I'm coming up, and then I just hold my thread as if to cut that circle in half, and I go back down into the fabric and I pull that. So now essentially I've got a circle with a pink line through the center. Then either the left or the right, it's up to you. I go to, again, on the line, coming up on the line, and this is going to be a small stitch, so these edges here. And then go down on the line, and then I'm going to go to the left hand side of that center one, and I'm going to come up on the line and go down on the line. So essentially now I've got 3 stitches in my circle. I have the 2 outside ones and then the center one. Now I've got these 2 gaps of fabric, so I'm going to come up on the right hand side. I'm going to come up between my small and larger stitch, and about halfway, and I'm going to come up and I'm going to pop another stitch in there. Then I'm going to go to the left hand side of my center one and do exactly the same thing. So what I'm doing now is essentially just filling in. Okay, and now you can see there that there are some gaps between those stitches, so I just continue filling in. Okay, and I come up and I go down, and I'm between 2 stitches there. So there you go, you can see that fills in, and then I'm going to continue doing that all the way until it's all filled in. Now I like to, you can see this one's gone a little bit crooked because I didn't pull my thread in a straight line down, and that's what I like to do to make sure that I'm getting the coverage. So I pull my thread, not tight, just holding it with a little bit of tension, and then I put my needle underneath it, and I know that that stitch is going to lay a lot flatter than that previous one. And then I just fill that in. Alright, so I'll show you that again, okay, on this top circle. So I'm cutting my circle in half, so I come up at the top of the circle, holding a little bit of tension on my thread, going down in the bottom of the circle on the line and cutting it in half. Then coming to the left or right hand side and doing a small stitch, and then to the other side. And this just helps. I find when I go from one side to the other, my stitches aren't consistent, they don't look uniformed. My circles will look a little bit wonky. I mean, obviously it's easier when you're doing a square or something like that, but when you're doing a circle, I find this is the easiest way to get the best coverage and a nice looking circle, as you can see from the ones that I've already done. Alright, so what we keep doing is we just keep filling in. And then the next stitch we're going to move on to is our chain stitch. And I will show you how to begin and end that as well. So for instance, if you're doing a large area like we are doing in the down in the garden, the frame, the red frame on that, and I'll put a link down below where you can actually go and watch that stitch with me and you can see what I'm talking about. And you will have a few joins in that. Alright, so you can see there that they've worked out really well. They're sitting nice and flush, and now we can move on to the chain stitch. Okay, so to start our chain stitch, basically all we're going to do, you can see here, it actually looks like a chain. You're going to come up at the beginning of where you're starting. So in this case, I'm starting on this line here, and you're going to come up, and then what you're going to do is you're going to go back down where you came up, and you're going to create a loop. When I get it all untangled, you're going to create a loop with your floss. Now you don't want this area to be crossed over. Okay, you want it to be sitting so it's nice and open, and there's no crossing, because you will get a twist in your chain stitch. Then about 1/8 of an inch along, you're going to come up in through that loop, and you're going to pull it, and that creates your first chain. Next, you're going to go back down where you just came up, and you're going to repeat that all the way along the line. About 1/8 of an inch along. Always the way when you're on camera, it does want to play nice. Okay, and again. So in the pattern it uses tiny chain stitch. I'm doing this a little bit, so that's sort of that size there, which is a little bit small. I'm actually doing this just slightly bigger, just so you can see it a little bit easier. Okay, again, we're going to go down, make sure that that is not twisted in this junction just in here. Come up about 1/8 of an inch. And pull that along. Again, going down where you came up, and then coming up, moving along the line, coming up in that circle there. Now to finish your chain stitch, instead of going back down where you just came up, you're going to go onto this side of the loop, really close to it, and then you're just going to go down, and that's going to anchor it in place. So you can see there that that's not going to come apart or like unravel or anything like that. And it's sort of how you do a lazy daisy as well. Then to restart that, so you've reloaded your needle and you want to start and continue along with that, you go in the chain, okay, as close to that curve as possible. Then you go back down where you just came up, create a circle with your floss, and then you're moving along about 1/8 of an inch, and there you go. You just continue on. Okay, and we come back up, and then we go back down. I'll do this one last chain, and then I'll show you how to finish off again. And then that is all the stitches that we've done in our Stitch With Me, nice and close, and hopefully that will help you with your stitching. So again, you've got the loop here. We're just going to go on that side of the loop, and we're going to go down, and that's going to secure that in place. Okay, so hopefully that will help you with your stitching and you've got something out of that. It's a little bit closer than what it was in the Stitch With Me. So if you like this video today, give us a thumbs up down below. Don't forget, if there's a stitch that you want to do and you're having a bit of trouble with, by all means leave me a comment down below with what sort of stitch it is, and I will do my best to get a video for you. Again, this is just a tiny chain stitch that is being used in the down in the garden. This is how I do my satin stitch for circles. This is how I do my small circles, and this is back stitch here. So if you've got any questions at all, by all means leave me a comment down below and I'll be happy to answer it. Have a great day everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.